Guys, today we are back to do another video associated with the pond we have in the front yard. This time we will be transplanting lily pad plants that our neighbors have graciously allowed to pilfer from their pond and add them to ours. Now the reason I need to do this is, I guess, a couple of reasons. First of all, the aesthetics. I just love the look of lily pads, and then the flowers associated with these in particular are yellow, which work well with our pond aesthetics. Uh, and then also the lily pads provide cover for the fish and the frogs and kind of aid for the covering the eggs that the frogs lay. And it provides shade for the pond, which we sorely need. A couple years ago, we got rid of a couple very large trees because they were rotting from the inside out, and there was a danger of them falling. Unfortunately, those trees provided shade for the house and therefore for the pond. And so we're missing that shade, and you will see when we look at the pond that it's quite murky right now. So I want the lily pads to provide that little bit of extra shade to keep the algae growth under control. I will also be pilfering some of the duckweed from my neighbor's pond, which again they have graciously allowed me to do. So with that, let's talk about the tools we will be using today. First of all, I've got my gloves. Gloves are a must when dealing with pond muck because pond muck is a scent that sticks around even when you wash your hands. You can wash your hands a few times and you still smell that, that very organic kind of sulfury smell. So these will protect my hands from that for the most part. I've got a couple containers which are just came from dead plants that we had laying around. uh, no use in buying anything new when you can use what you have laying around the house. I've got a shovel which I will be using to dig out the lily pads, and then of course my trusty hip waders, which again will be a must since we will be actually in the pond. So with that, I am going to get geared up and I will meet you at the pond. Okay, we are at my neighbor's pond, and I've been looking around to identify which plants I'd like to dig up, and I think I've found a couple candidates. I wanted to find something that looked pretty healthy and that it had leaves that were both at water level and maybe some that were above water level, and ideally with at least one bloom. And I also needed to find something around the perimeter of the pond. I can't really go deep in the pond because probably with the muck, I would be at chest level. And there's a big snapping turtle in here somewhere, and I don't want to be food for the snapping turtle. So I'm just looking around the edge, and let me show you which which one I'm looking at. If you can see, there's one right here. There is a yellow bloom there, and there's also one just over here. It might be hidden by a leaf to the camera, but there's also a bloom, and that one's actually sticking up out of the water. So those are the two that I will be targeting today. So with that, I'm going to put my gloves on and we're going to get wet. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, here I am at the first plant, And what I'm going to try to do here is I'm looking for the rhizome, which is the stem of the plant. And I want to make sure I have enough of that rhizome so that the plant is able to flourish. You know, without it, if I would just get the stems, for example, the plant would just die. So it needs that rhizome to grow in the pot and in the pond. So let's see what we come up with here. Okay, so yeah, you can see the rhizome right here. So that's what I am looking for. What I'll probably do is I'll leave some of these leaves on. I might pare them back a little bit. Here's my flower. And let's go get us the second plant if we can. Okay, another successful extraction. Again, here's the rhizome. Here's my pretty flower, and the lily pads on this one aren't as great looking, but we've got some good ones to deal with. So I am going to take these back to our pond and we'll get them planted. I almost forgot the duckweed. So I'm going to use this fine mesh net to get some from right around here. Okay, I've got a good amount of duckweed here. So now take two, going back to the house and to our pond. And let's get this duckweed in the pond and plant those lily pads. Okay, here we are at the edge of the pond, and I've already released the duckweed. You might be able to see it in the background there. It's kind of floating around in a little bit of an island right there. Can't quite reach it, but it'll disperse with the currents. So I'm happy I got some of that. I may even go back and get some more. But for the time being, we are going to transplant the lily pads. Now what I've done is I've taken one of the buckets and I got some soil from around the pond, not in the pond. I didn't want pond muck because that's nasty. But it's kind of from the same area. So I will be using that to anchor the plants. So we are going to start with this lily pad because the container is empty. So let's start by putting some dirt in the bottom. And I'm not worrying too much about filling the holes. I'm just going to be gentle, and then when I put the lily pads in the pond, I will put them in very slowly so I don't float all the dirt out. Now again, with these lily pads, the most important part is this rhizome. I've also got some other tendrils here that I will be keeping intact. So really what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the slime and whatnot off here because we don't need that, and any lily pads that are damaged or not really needed, looking kind of icky, I will just remove those. Okay. Clear off a little bit more of this detritus. Being gentle with the lily pads. Okay. All right, so I will put this in the bottom, and then I will gently, I'll just take my hands, I guess, put dirt around the edges. Not going to fill it all the way up to the top. It's just enough to cover the rhizome and a little bit up the plant. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's float it in the pond and see what it looks like. Now, you can see that some of the leaves are on the surface of the water and others are above it. And again, that's absolutely fine. That's the way they were in our neighbor's pond. It'll take a little bit for them to sort of settle down and find their new position within our pond. So I am just going to repeat these steps with the other lily pad. Okay, that will do it for this project. Today we were able to transplant not one, but two, technically three, lily pads from our neighbor's pond to our pond. I was able to use containers I just had laying around the house, didn't have to buy anything special there. And I used dirt that was in the vicinity of the plants so that there wasn't a shock at all when I replanted them here and put them in our pond. So what I will do off camera is fill up the pond a little bit more. It's been really hot the last several days, and the pond is running a little bit low. So we'll bring that water up a little bit. We also added some duckweed. And I think all of that, the lily pads with the duckweed together, will make the fish and frogs very happy. So with that, thank you for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And visit the channel if you have a chance. There's a lot of videos there, both inside and outside, that you can take a look at. A lot of small DIY projects. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you on our next adventure.